So looking at the challenges for the sector from a legal perspective, there's probably three that I think most people should be focusing on at the moment. The first is a paper that the government is preparing on competitiveness in the sector. Secondly, foreign investment regulation. And thirdly, how we're going with our negotiation of free trade agreements. So looking at the competitiveness policies first, the government is in a process at the moment of developing a comprehensive policy on agricultural competitiveness and a similar policy on the expansion of Northern Australia, Northern Australian development, which has a key agricultural component to it. This is very much part of the new government's policy that agriculture is one of the 5 pillars of the Australian economy. One of the things that we've been focusing on is farmland ownership. Traditionally in Australia, farms have been owned by families, and that has some very good aspects to it. Families work hard, they keep communities together. But there's some aspects to that ownership model that constrain our growth in agriculture. And one of those is that to be a farmer, you have to own a farm. And so we are seeing increasingly an ageing demographic. We are not seeing the number of young people going into farming that we need. And this is very much because the financial structure is creating a barrier to entry. And so one of the things I hope the government is looking at is ways to encourage capital, such as investment funds, to marry up with farmers to find new models of ownership, whether that's joint ventures, corporate farming, or sharecropping or other leaseback arrangements. Looking now at foreign ownership, the government, responding to concerns amongst a number of its constituents, proposed before the election a bit of a crackdown on foreign ownership of agricultural assets. So we were going to see a fairly dramatic lowering of thresholds, at which point applications would have to be made to the government to approve foreign investment proposals. Those new restrictions have not come to light yet. The government is still working on those. So that is very much a watching brief to see what happens. But hopefully, and I think certainly the government has made very positive statements about Australia being open for business. We are not seeing the doors closed on foreign investment, but what we are seeing is an attempt to renew community acceptance of foreign investment through some perhaps overdue regulation. And hopefully that is the message that the government sends. Critical to the sector as well is bringing down some of the tariff and other trade barriers that we have overseas in our export markets. We've been very successful in negotiating a treaty with the United States on free trade. This year we've just had an announcement that the free trade agreement with South Korea has been concluded, and we are now looking at Japan, potentially a conclusion of that free trade agreement very soon, and hopefully both sides have now committed to the conclusion of a free trade agreement with China. Those 4 agreements would cover a significant proportion of our agricultural trade. There are a number of legal issues that we are keeping an eye on. They have an incredible amount of importance for the sector. This is a sector that I think will undergo enormous change in the next short to medium term.